Good day, watchers. Today, we're diving into a fascinating rabbit hole that combines two of the world's biggest passions, football and luxury watches. It all started when I asked myself a simple question. What watches do the world's biggest football stars actually wear? Not the watches they're paid to promote, not the ones they wear in commercials, the watches they choose to spend their own money on. After hours of research, I discovered something surprising. These players come from different countries, play for different clubs, drive different supercars, and live very different lives. Yet when it comes to watches, they all seem to buy the same few models. And later in this video, I'm going to reveal the watch that appears on footballers' wrists more than any other. Spoiler alert, it's not a Richard Mille. Before we continue, if you enjoy watches, watch collecting stories, and occasional deep dives into the strange world of luxury timepieces, please subscribe, click the like button, and turn on notifications. It really helps the channel grow, and I truly appreciate your support. Let's start with the obvious choice, Cristiano Ronaldo. If footballers were ranked by the size of their watch collections alone, Ronaldo would probably be competing for another Ballon d'Or. His collection is absolutely outrageous. Most of us save for months or years to buy a watch. Ronaldo buys watches that cost more than many people's homes. One of his most famous pieces is the Rolex Daytona Rainbow. If you've never seen one, imagine Rolex taking an already iconic Daytona and deciding it wasn't flashy enough. The bezel is covered in rainbow-colored sapphires, the dial sparkles with diamonds, and the market value can easily exceed $500,000. What's even crazier is that for Ronaldo, this isn't even his most extravagant watch. He owns several Jacob & Co. pieces, including models made specifically for him. These watches are less about telling the time and more about making sure everyone in the room knows exactly who just walked in. Whether you love them or hate them, you can't ignore them. In many ways, Ronaldo's collection reflects his personality, bold, confident, and impossible to overlook. Then we move to Lionel Messi, and the contrast is fascinating. Messi's watch collection feels very much like Messi himself. It's understated, elegant, and quietly impressive. While Ronaldo often gravitates toward diamond-covered statement pieces, Messi tends to wear watches like the Patek Philippe Nautilus and the Rolex Yachtmaster. No giant gemstones. No over-the-top complications designed to attract attention. Just some of the most respected and desirable luxury sports watches ever made. If Ronaldo's collection is a fireworks display, Messi's collection is a perfectly tailored suit. Different approaches, but both incredibly successful. And honestly, if you told me Messi was wearing a Nautilus before I saw the photo, I would probably believe you immediately because it suits his personality so well. As I continued digging through footballers' watch collections, another pattern began to emerge. One brand kept appearing over and over again. Richard Mille. It seemed impossible to escape. Kylian Mbappe wears Richard Mille. Neymar wears Richard Mille. Mohamed Salah wears Richard Mille. Vinicius Jr. wears Richard Mille. Ousmane Dembele wears Richard Mille. Trent Alexander-Arnold wears Richard Mille. At some point, I genuinely wondered if Richard Mille watches were included in football contracts. The brand has become almost synonymous with elite athletes. And to be fair, there are good reasons for that. Richard Mille watches are designed differently from traditional luxury watches. They're lightweight, durable, highly shock-resistant, and engineered with athletes in mind. Many of them look like something from a science fiction movie rather than a traditional Swiss watchmaker. Of course, they also cost enough money to buy a very nice house. sometimes more than one. But when you're earning Premier League wages, I suppose that's not quite the obstacle it would be for the rest of us. The deeper I went into this rabbit hole, the more I noticed something interesting. Despite all the variety in football, the same three watches appeared again and again. The Patek Philippe Nautilus, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, and the Rolex Daytona. It almost feels like there is a secret footballer's watch starter pack. First, become one of the best players in the world. Second, buy a Nautilus. Third, buy a Royal Oak. Fourth, buy a Daytona. Congratulations, you've officially joined football's luxury watch club. These three watches dominate dressing rooms around the world. They appear on social media posts, at award ceremonies, in interviews, and during vacations. If you spot a footballer wearing a luxury watch, chances are it's one of these three. Let's talk about the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak for a moment because this watch deserves its own chapter. Players like Jude Bellingham, Virgil van Dijk, Bruno Fernandes, Kevin De Bruyne, and many others have all been seen wearing Royal Oaks. And honestly, I completely understand why. The Royal Oak is one of the most influential watch designs in history. Introduced in the 1970s, it completely changed the luxury watch industry by proving that a stainless steel sports watch could be considered high luxury. Even today, more than 50 years later, it still looks modern and distinctive. That's incredibly difficult to achieve. When a footballer buys a Royal Oak, they're not simply buying an expensive watch. They're buying a design icon that helped reshape modern watchmaking. Then there is the Rolex Daytona, which might actually be the unofficial king of football watches. Ronaldo owns one, Messi owns one, Haaland owns one, Lewandowski owns one, Griezmann owns one. The list goes on and on. The Daytona has become the luxury sports watch equivalent of a Ferrari. Everyone recognizes it, everyone wants one, and it somehow manages to look good in almost every situation. Whether you're wearing a suit, sitting courtside at a sporting event, or boarding a private jet, the Daytona always seems appropriate. It's one of those rare watches that transcends trends and remains desirable decade after decade. One discovery genuinely surprised me. Not every footballer spends six figures on a watch. One player stood out because he went completely against the trend. Ebereki Eze has often been seen wearing Casio G-Shocks. That's right, a Casio. While other players are collecting watches worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, he's perfectly happy wearing something practical, reliable, and affordable. And honestly, I think that's pretty cool. There's something refreshing about someone choosing a watch because they genuinely enjoy it rather than because it impresses other people. Plus, if we're being honest, a G-Shock can probably survive things that would make some luxury watches cry for help. Sometimes the most interesting choice in a room full of expensive watches is the least expensive watch. After looking through dozens of footballers and hundreds of wrist shots, I came away with one conclusion. Footballers may come from different countries, play different positions, and have completely different personalities, but when it comes to watches, they keep returning to the same icons. The Rolex Daytona, the Audemars Piguet Royal Oak, the Patek Philippe Nautilus, and increasingly Richard Mille. These are the watches that dominate football culture today. They represent success, status, achievement, and in some cases, sponsorship deals worth more than most of us can imagine. Yet among all the million-dollar collections and luxury brands, I still find it amusing that one of the coolest stories belongs to a player wearing a Casio. Now I'd love to hear from you. Imagine you just signed a 5-year Premier League contract tomorrow. Which watch would you buy first? Would you go for the timeless elegance of the Nautilus? The iconic design of the Royal Oak, the legendary status of the Daytona, the futuristic engineering of a Richard Mille? Or would you surprise everyone and spend your money on a Grand Seiko instead? Let me know in the comments below because I'm genuinely curious what watch enthusiasts would choose if money were no object. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe, click like, and turn on notifications so you don't miss future uploads. As always, I live in Japan and I make videos about watches. I'll see you in the next one. Take care, everyone.